How many people are playing chess on this ship?
I think you underestimate how boring it is in space.
No, you have a holodeck. Captain's Pod, Stardate 802623.1. Welcome aboard the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me, as always, they call her the Dancing Ambassador. It's Deneé!
The dance ambassador.
The dance ambassador? That's the twerk ambassador?
It's a working title. I like how you say "with me as always," but then I haven't actually been on the show for like 2 weeks.
And I was like, "Don't be mean. Don't be mean." It's still as always. How are you doing? How has your break from the ship been? You've been off ship for 3 weeks.
Yes, I have been off ship for a few weeks. I've really enjoyed the Twitter madness. What I mean by that is the few people that interact on Twitter. When Ian will make an announcement that we're not doing a live show, they're like, "What the fuck, guys? Pull your shit together."
Fire all phases. Good, you're a mess. Get your act together. And just like gifs everywhere of like disappointment, and you are no longer part of the family or one with the Force, or yeah.
And to that, I have a song.
Oh no.
And that's my song. That really just encompasses how I feel.
Mm-hmm. And if you play it backwards, it's actually the entirety of the Old Testament played at 7 times speed.
No. I mean, yes, but then also it's an actual explanation as to like how unwell I have been, and don't you all feel like shit now that I was not feeling well?
For making
and you're
her
just
feel
like,
guilty.
Yeah, how dare I wasn't feeling guilty. I'm fine.
No, she's good. Okay, this week, to get back into the groove of things, we have 2 episodes until we start covering season 2 of Strange New Worlds as it lands. So this week, we're just going to have a little bit of fun. And I say fun because it's going to be fun, Ambassador, even though a wedding is involved in this episode. You will like it better than the last wedding episode we covered, I promise.
It's been a couple weeks. I've had a little bit of time to have a little palate cleanser. How was everybody's reaction to me not liking the character that they liked so much?
As usual, I got slammed for introducing you to the wrong episode.
But you didn't pick the episode. The audience did.
I didn't pick the episode, but I put it out there. I shouldn't have even put it out there as
like
an option.
Temptation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So it's like if you know that Deneé hates mushrooms and you put mushrooms out as an option, don't be surprised if the audience picks mushrooms. That's the kind of
lessons were learned. Exactly. So
I don't know that people expected me to not like this character, though.
No, people did not. But they also acknowledged that this is a terrible episode for that character as well. This is a terrible way to introduce you to Jadzia.
Okay. So I wasn't way off. Like, my reaction wasn't...
No, she's a dick in this episode. Yeah, she's an absolute dick. Yeah, completely agree. So we're going way safe now. We're going to go back to TNG. We're going back to the happy place. This episode is called Data's Day. Ambassador, give us a big prediction for the episode and then an oddly specific prediction. And maybe this week we'll remember to review them.
Ooh, okay, so we know that there's a wedding in this episode. So I'm going to say that this is the episode where, let's see, my very specific detail is what I'm going to do first. And this is going to be the wedding of, what's his name? Beamer guy.
Beamer guy? I genuinely haven't got a fucking clue what you mean.
He's always the one that beams people.
O'Brien? Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
When you said Beamer, I thought you meant BMW because that's what we call BMWs in England. Beamers.
Yeah, those are in space
drives
now.
a BMW. Okay,
so it's Beamer guy's wedding. That's my very specific. No. That's my broad stroke.
Okay.
My very specific is that somebody's allergic to shellfish.
Good.
And that's part of what is served at the dinner. No. That's way too normal.
Great.
No. This is gonna be like. So there's going to be a wedding and then something terrible happens and Data's got to save the day so that they can have their wedding. So I'm thinking it's something to do with maybe everybody gets food poisoning because there's something wrong with the replicators. The replicators have accidentally got like a bacterial strain thing going on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100% a Star Trek plot. That is...
Is it?
No, it happens in Voyager. Yeah, it's absolutely a plot thing. It's not a wedding, but yeah, that would not surprise me. A bacterial strain getting into the replicators, yeah, 100%.
Well, that's not in this episode. I guess I know that's not going to happen now.
It might.
Shit.
I'm just saying it also happens elsewhere.
Okay, so okay, I'll do a different one then. All the doors get locked. Nobody can get to the wedding because all the doors aren't working, and no one wants to crawl through a Jeffrey's tube in a wedding gown.
You
nobody.
remember Jeffrey's tube. I'm very
But
proud.
also, it's just the strangest thing I always remember. But also, there are no wedding dresses unless they have them replicated. So, so then since they can't get into the right rooms and everyone's separated and they're trying to figure out how to get back together, Data, the only one, that's out for some reason, probably because Spot got out and he went chasing after Spot,
Yeah, that happened.
And then they can't get everybody in the same space. They're all crawling through Jeffrey. It's like hamsters in the big rodent maze of your house. And then at the very, very end, they've run out of time. They just have to get married. So no wedding dress, no tux, no party, just the love of friendship there in 10 Forward.
I don't think we need to watch the episode. You've done it. Congrats.
Yay! Let's go to the live show.
Well, with that, let's keep that prediction in mind, and we will see you in 10 Forward for a full debrief after we've watched the episode. 2 to beam to the holodeck. And a duck. Where did that come? Where did that duck come? Who put
Don't
this
ask
duck
questions.
here?
Don't ask
Who
questions.
left this duck in the transporter room? Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab a drink from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode we just watched together. Most important question first, what would you like from the replicator, Deneé?
Whatever it is, I want it to be in whatever glass Worf decided to pick as his wedding present, which they didn't fucking show us.
No, and his little upward raised lip whenever he looked at all of the glasswares, like, this is shit. This is the most bullshit presents I've ever seen.
Whatever it is, it's got to be in a Worf glass. That's all.
I would like to replicate the thing that they used in the salon to change that lady's hair. So just immediately change my hair color, drop of a hat, however I want. It's so easy. It makes me wonder why she even needed to go to the barbers for it. Like, just do that shit in your quarters in the mirror.
Yeah.
If it's that convenient, you should be able to change it like you change your shirt or whatever.
I agree completely.
Amazing.
And that's the whole point of the show. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Captain's Pod,
Barber Trek.
everybody. Bye.
Let's go. Okay, give us a synopsis, Deneé.
God, fuck. Okay. In this episode, we take a deep dive into the day with Data, where we peep in on his private conversations with a psychopath named Maddox, who he, for some reason, is still talking to.
You remembered who it is. Yay.
Hey, Maddox, it's nice to talk to you. No, it's not.
Thanks for trying to take me apart that one time and denying my rights as a sentient being.
On this particular
XOXO.
day, we have a birth, a death, possibly a mysterious death, a mystery to solve, a wedding canceled, a wedding back on, dance lessons, dinnerware lessons, and more. Most importantly, we learn that the bridge lights can be dimmed.
We just choose not. I mean, we learned that in Generations as well, because they just keep them permanently dimmed. But yes, there is a night shift. Great synopsis. That's awesome. So what did you feel about the episode? We're coming off of a sketchy wedding episode. We're going into something I hope is a better version of how to do a wedding episode in some ways. I think so. I liked it. What did you think, Ambassador? Overall thoughts and feelings.
I fucking loved it.
Yeah, you did.
Oh my God. This was such a fun episode.
Vindication.
There are some things I don't like about it,
Oh,
which
hell
is
yeah.
true for everything.
Hell yeah.
And we'll get to the sins of the show for sure. But there are still things that I probably will just talk about in general that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I thought it was a really clever way to kind of do, and you guys know I love Data, to do a little bit more of a character study on this character, which this episode would have been a really good one to have when we were doing our Data run before.
Correct. And as I said, whenever we last recorded, it was really high up on my list. The only reason it wasn't in there was because of the marriage stuff. And I know your feelings about weddings and all of that, like, blah, 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 blah. So I shunted it away. But you're right. It's an outstanding character study of Data and how he interacts with the main cast as well. It's a great introduction to Data.
Yeah, there's some things, and what was really clever about it too is for someone maybe that's trying to kind of figure out like the clever things that they did in this one is everything's from Data's perspective. So him talking about his relationship with Riker or Worf or Geordi or Troy or Captain Picard, it's putting it into this perspective of like, I have a very unique relationship with Worf because we're both, orphans that were kind of adopted by humanity, but we still don't fit in. So it was a reminder about a little of Worf's story and a little bit of Data's story and what brings them together. Or Data just saying things about emotion, wishing that he had an intuition because he knows that Vulcans tell the truth. So he would walk away from a Vulcan conversation just kind of like, oh, that was interesting, rather than that was an intuitive kind of moment. So he has like interpersonal perspectives, and he's just kind of giving a log, but he's only doing it because he wants to give Maddox information about how Android is attempting to sort of create this database of handling the human experience. So would he even be writing this stuff down so intently without having a need to talk to Maddox? Probably not. He would just be running all this stuff in his computer system. Yeah, but instead he's kind of penning it, and then we're getting a peek into that. And this episode does a really interesting kind of run through a day in the life of, because there's so much that can happen. And it's kind of referenced a couple different times in the episode, like how many things can happen on a starship in just one day, let alone, I think it's like the 1,550th day that it's been out as well.
Yeah,
so
it's
there's
like 3.5 years.
Yeah, so they're like doing this sort of, there's a lot that happens on a ship, and you're just seeing this tiny little glimpse of the day-to-day life. But it was still an adventure. We still had a mystery to solve. We still had things going on the ship. There was still interpersonal relationship building. We still got to see pretty much the entire cast, which is always fun when you get to see a little bit of everyone. There's this particular moment when Data enters the bridge and passes by Riker. And the shot kind of, I think, starts on Riker as he's sort of animatedly telling the story.
Just fucking everyone in sight.
That's a different show.
No, this happens. This is Riker.
So
Riker
he's like,
just Rikering all over everyone.
He's Rikering. I think his leg is hiked up too. Who knows? But Data is saying like how charismatic he is and everything. And it just sort of fades Riker's audio out and then ramps back in the narration from Data's perspective. So for a split second, it kind of looks like we're transitioning to a different person, but it's because Data's walked in. And I thought that was a clever use of like the camera angles and the audio engineering. I never once got bored watching it. There was a couple scenes I was like rolling my eyes really hard. And I bet you can imagine which one, since you know my feelings on the wedding stuff from the 90s, apparently.
Yeah.
He's not a fan.
No.
But yeah, it was interesting. I liked it. What about you? Like, so how many times have you watched this episode?
This is one of my go-to episodes. Despite the wedding stuff, Data is pure freaking magic. He's just, and this is such an interesting way to tell a TNG story as well, because it's so formulaic. It is one of the reasons I love the show, is that it's so comfortable. Every episode you kind of know the structure. This is one of the few episodes like Cause and Effect that throws that structure away a little bit and does something interesting. So it's very unique to have a story, an entire episode told from the point of view of one person. And there is an A plot here, what the A team are doing, like Lower Decks, that we only get little snippets of. And it is such an incredible tension driver to just dip in to this main important bit of the story with the Romulans and Ambassador T'Pel, and then get chucked out of it into the whimsical stuff like Data dancing. And how this episode manages to find that balance is, I don't know how it finds that really balance so well. It's a perfectly, we talk about food a lot, it's a perfectly well balanced 3-course meal of a nice introduction, a beefy meaty menu, and then a nice sweet treat at the end. It just pulls everything together so well. And some dramatic shit happens in this episode, which could just be a throwaway O'Brien and Keiko get married, nonsense Data does dancing episode. No, it chucks in this undercurrent of deep shit as well. It's why I come back to it over and over and over again. It's such a well-told story. A
Federation spy. They do so much in this one episode.
Thank you. A Romulan patriot.
Yeah, wait, Romulan spy, not a Federation. A Romulan masquerading as a Federation.
Yeah, Romulan patriot masquerading as a spy in the Federation.
And such a light little thing. You know, that's sort of like it's almost like the wedding is the big dessert at the end, but that piece for me was really interesting. That must have been, I don't know, the big steak part before you get to because there was so much packed into that. They have threaded together everything really cleverly as well. Yes, the wedding kind of kicks it off, which creates the conversation with so-and-so, which creates the conversation with so-and-so, and it gives them a reason to interact later on. But they never stay too much inside of one thing. And to me, it didn't seem like they forced it too much either.
No.
Even the hints at the spy. You're kind of like going, is this a Vulcan sort of vibe? Is there something going on? The music is telling us that something is up, but maybe it's not. And so it has that nice little mystery to it. So for those of us that get really bored with wedding preparation, there was something else kind of happening.
It's a big old
there.
reward, isn't it? Don't worry, this isn't just a wedding episode. Like, this is really important. And it's a mystery that gives you the puzzle pieces, but it doesn't slap you in the face with the answer either. I remember not guessing that she was a spy. Like, the data request from Data is sketchy, but it wasn't enough to make me think Romulan spy. It's just an incredible multi-layered twist that they figure out the Romulans have beamed her, that she hasn't died in a transporter accident, which we all know, but you think that she's just been kidnapped. But then this is how you do a twist. It's like, yeah, she has been kidnapped on purpose.
Yeah, that was
So
really the
great.
reveal of her walking out and she's back in her Romulan gear. But also the fumbling of Data, the intellect of Data as he is going about everything he's doing the way that he knows how. Data doesn't get embarrassed. And I love that about his character. He makes so many mistakes in this episode, according to like human elements. You know,
Keiko has made a decision that will improve her happiness. I have good news. She's called off the wedding.
Which is great. I loved that part.
Great logic.
But even how he approaches trying to correct her, he wasn't saying you're wrong. He was saying you're wrong because your logic is wrong. Let's get to that point. Still, you don't have to get married, but like, let's talk about why you delayed it. And I loved that approach to it too. But even in not disclosing that the dance was for a wedding and not for like this. So he kind of fumbles his way through, and he's childlike, which I love. And unapologetic, but also trying to figure out when he should apologize and what that means to him for his system to run more properly. He wants to correct his programming rather than it being like a personal thing in a way.
Because he opens the episode by saying, I've created a program that will help me to predict how my friends are going to react to certain things. Super confident this is going to work. This is going to go great.
And then
immediately he's like, I think I'm going to have to rewrite this program immediately.
But they all tolerate it, and they are challenged by him too, which is really neat. But then the same balance of that. So on the other spectrum of that, he is such a trusted member of the crew to be able to go and solve this problem. So yes, he's a bumbling, fumbling child that's making mistakes, but he's also an incredibly valuable crew member that solves a massive problem like quickly. So he is to be feared, and he's to be respected, and he's to be entertained. Like, we can be entertained by him. Yeah. So he's just a great character. One of my favorite characters to ever watch. And this was a perfect reminder about him. And I would say if anyone ever wants to see a Data episode, this does a really good job of it, because even introducing characters that you might not know, like Riker or Troy, the way that the writers narrated it in, like, Troy is a mystery to me, and I don't really understand her because she uses emotion. So it's still giving the viewer the bits of information they need to have a real quick synopsis of who this character is. And it also takes you around the ship. It takes you around the crew, and it introduces some of the other parts to it too. I mean, like, even Picard is this like powerful mystery in this one. He's not the central character. He's the one that is secretive and having these private conversations and then making really big moves at the end. So I think this is a really good episode to introduce someone to TNG. I don't know.
You're
what do you
right.
think?
I hadn't thought of it that way. You would think that the individual focused ones wouldn't be so good, but you do get a great tour of the ship, great explanation of the characters, Riker being the confident, charismatic first officer, tension with the Romulans, you get some outside real world stuff, Vulcans, like how Vulcans are as a race and how Data relates to that, Geordi being his best friend, transporters being murder machines. It really has everything that TNG does and more. Yeah.
And it does it in a way that, and it has the humor in it. I mean, that dance scene with Beverly is a dream.
It is.
Right?
When I made the final decision of do I show Deneé this episode, it hinged on the Dancing Doctor sequence because it stands out in my head so much. Data doing the running man, them dancing backwards and forwards, the clever overhead shots of them dancing like in a circle, Data's goofy grin. He's just like, I am now prepared to dance at the wedding. And Beverly's like, whoa,
whoa.
No,
hey, context,
why
buddy.
Did you tell me that? But it all starts with him saying, I would like you to teach me to dance. And she's like, no, you get in my office right now. I'm not going to be known as the Dancing Doctor anymore.
This is the Data dancing episode, right? This is
it is.
When you said it's a wedding episode, I did not expect that. And though we try not to reference the chat too much during the actual show, I have to do a shout out for Sarah Superior, who was like adamant. This is not a wedding episode, and I agree completely with Sarah. It isn't though. This isn't there's a wedding in it.
There's a wedding in it. It's not about the wedding. It's just as much a
transporter fail episode. It's just as much a neutral zone episode. The wedding is such a small part of it, and thank God.
The wedding is the medium by which everything else happens.
This is more than that. This is definitely Data's episode. This is not a wedding episode.
But this is the thing that, and if I was going to make a comparison between TNG and DS9, is that TNG is great at using things as an allegory and as a launching point. So the wedding here is the launching point for all of this other interpersonal stuff that happens. DS9 was so stuck in Worf and Jadzia's arc that it became all about their arc and that really deep personal stuff between them and like setting up the law of Klingon weddings and all of that stuff, which kind of embodies what DS9 does. DS9 does the long distance arc stuff, the really detailed stuff. TNG was all about metaphors and allegories and the human experience and how we use space and sci-fi to explore that stuff.
Yeah. I think before we go on from like the dancing scene.
No, let's stay in it for the next hour and a half.
We have to also mention that dress.
Which one?
Holy shit.
Oh, the one with the holographic lady? The plunging V.
Oh my God. That dress needs to be on a runway
back
somewhere.
Temples. Yeah.
I mean, we saw some interesting clothing, but that one was sheer on the bottom, long sleeves, but you could still see through. And then it just slowly turns. And I think we're supposed to be looking for Data's smile, which is definitely there. But I'm just like, how far down does this dress go? And it goes down a long, long ways, and it was gorgeous.
It is. Data's smile is exactly the smile I would be having.
I hope not, because it's like borderline this creepiest thing I've ever seen. But it's so funny.
Gag. It's such a great gag.
Oh my gosh.
So refined, and he's just like, I love it. And it's just like Gates McFadden dancing is so fun. It's just a clever way to introduce her into this story as well.
Who?
Beverly. Gates McFadden. That's the actor that plays
you mean
Beverly.
Like to make her relevant in the story, besides the fact that she's doing the autopsy of blood spatter.
Exactly. The dusted Vulcan. It's so fun to see her get some meat on the bone and something to do with Data. Just her charisma in that whole. I want her to teach me how to tap dance. I really do. It's so fun. It's so great. And the fact that Data, like, it's great logic that he's great at tap dancing, but as soon as he has to make eye contact, he's like, I need to see your feet in order to do this.
Learn. Yeah, I've got some sins for that moment, but that was really clever. And it was just fun too, because you know that these two are actually tap dancing. Like, that wasn't a body double, right?
There was a body. So for the overhead shots, Data is a body double. Yeah. But I had to look so hard, and I caught it in like 3 frames you can see, but they frame it so naturally and so cleverly, you barely notice that it's not Brent Spiner.
Let's see. Crusher tap dancing featured a dancer double for Data only. Gates McFadden is an accomplished tap dancer and did all her own work.
Correct. Tap dancer, puppeteer, puppet maker. She's incredible.
Yeah, and in the chat it was mentioned, which we'll get to in the end, I guess choreographed Labyrinth as well, according to the chat.
She did.
Which is one of my favorite, and I actually have a poster that I just got.
Yeah, you do.
Of the Labyrinth, because it's one of my favorite. I'm going to hang it up on the wall right there. It's going to replace my face, because that's right, podcast listener. I have a poster on my wall of my own head.
Yeah, you do. Why wouldn't you? I mean, come on.
It's also Aaron Dicer and Jonathan Watkins from when we launched the TV Sins channel together. But
beautiful. So let's go through some other stuff that you absolutely loved about the episode. Give me some moments.
Okay, I will. I think I kind of went over everything. What about you? Like, did I miss something? Can you think of something that I didn't cover?
Just there's some moments that I really love. And this relates back to how you said that Data is allowed to be a bumbling idiot and make mistakes with his friends, and he's safe. And it's, my hair does not require trimming, you lunkhead. And Geordie's like, say what now?
What?
My hair does not require trimming, you lunkhead. It's so rare that you hear like any kind of anything nasty come out of Data's voice that it catches me off guard every time. It cracks me up. It's a great bit of humor.
And then Geordie is like, just don't do that to the captain.
Oh man, I would have loved it. I would have loved that. There's a really, really cool moment where Data is... So Picard and T'Pel have asked Data to analyze the ships along the neutral zone, to analyze what the Romulans are doing. And then Picard orders a change of course to the neutral zone. And Data narrates to himself, I'm glad that I don't have feelings, because a sudden course change to the neutral zone would make me nervous. And he's tapping his fingers. And then he looks down at them and like he doesn't realize he's doing it. And just imagine the trip of working out what is programming, what has evolved, what has he learned to do? Is he imitating people? Like, is he just emulating nerves? Is this a genuine feeling that he's having? There is so much in that loaded look at his own involuntary tapping that I'm blown away by. Even in 2023, I'm blown away by the little subtle nods and just how well they understood what they were doing with Data.
Yeah, that was really powerful because it's right in the foreground and he just kind of barely glances down. His fingers just tap, 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 tapping.
And then just dismisses
which we would interpret as nervously, but like you said, what is it? Because he seemed surprised that it was a automated reaction. So maybe his programming is mimicking his environment a little bit, and maybe he can take cues from his body doing things because of the programming as a sign that something else is kind of going on.
I love it.
Yeah, I did. I really liked that part. I also loved that moment when there was this standoff between Picard and the Romulan ambassador at the end when he's talking about poker and he's just looking back and forth between the monitor on screen and Picard, just like the way that this is shot, it removes the intensity of this standoff a little bit and turns it onto this child watching in awe of these two giants standing off. Like it's the machine observing what's happening in front of him, you know, rather than it being like this scared, like, oh, what's going to happen? It's just like this observation of the standoff. And I loved how that was written.
It's beautiful, and I don't think it happens today. I can't think of another example of this, because when you get these kind of episodes, usually in the finale, we'll shift out of gear away from Data, because I think the writers might be scared of losing the impact of that moment and being like, this is really dramatic, I want to sit in this, and you kind of forget the premise of the episode. This never forgets the premise, and even in that super dramatic moment, we put the brakes on, we go back into Data's mind, and he talks us through what he's thinking. And it's such a brave move to trust that we'll keep the tension of the moment, we'll still be invested. And it's not like with some throwaway bad guy. This is with the Romulans. This is a big thing. But we're still sticking to the concept of this is Data's day. This is his point of view. What is Data thinking in the moment? And on top of that, Starfleet loses this one. It's so fun. The Enterprise is outnumbered, outmaneuvered. They've fallen for every trick that the Romulans sat for them. This is an ambassador that has been a diplomat for decades and has now been reunited with the Romulans. Like, this is a huge, huge blow. Now, obviously, it's TNG, so we forget about it next episode. But it's so rare to see us lose. And they lose in this episode. It's so fun.
It's a huge blow, but it's also really clever because if Picard had left, then the narrative would have been that Starfleet
fucked it up. Or deliberately fucked it up.
The Romulans could have used it as a reason to incite war. But Picard usurps this by finding out the truth. So yes, they lose, but they also leave knowing and having proof that they didn't kill anybody. there's not a reason for war. So if there's going to be a war, it's going to be for different terms. And yes, they got away with information that they obviously didn't want them to have. But at the same time, it also calls into question some of Data's stuff. Like Data was like curious about it. But I think the protocol would have indicated like there's no one that would have believed that Data had a reason to, because like when she brings him in and says something about tell me about your shit, and he's like, I mean, I can, but I have protocol too. And then the ambassador backs off. But it was so well done that I didn't know for sure.
Nope.
Besides the music telling me, that there was something a bit nefarious going on, because from that Vulcan sort of direct communication style, she says that she was testing him and testing their security and that it was fine and you may leave. And she's so strong. Like the actor doesn't even give any indication, like emote wise, that there's anything like going on. The only clue we have is the music.
So what did you think about that moment with Data? Because this fascinates me, because as he leaves T'Pel's quarters, he's like, I often wish that I had intuition, because factually I have to believe that she's telling the truth because Vulcans can't lie, but there is something strange about all of this. So what did you feel about that moment? Because I'm just like, Data, you have intuition. Like you have it. Like there is something inside you that isn't right, but you can't put your finger on it. Like he's accidentally defining what intuition is.
I almost had that as a sin, because let's say that he's thinking that in the moment and logging it for his log later. He has an intuition because he has something suspicious. But if the show is saying that this narration is a reflection on his day and he's doing it in retrospect, he's doing it in reflecting on his day, then he has information he wouldn't have had in the moment. Because upon reflection, he might go, oh, well, that could have been a sign, but I really didn't have anything else to go off of. Maybe if I was a human, I would have my intuition. So it's a little bit on the fence for me, because it depends on when he says that. If he's actually saying it in the moment as he's walking out the door, then I think that he has intuition. If he's saying it upon reflection, I don't think he does.
Well, it's an interesting point, because right at the start of the episode, he starts his log to Maddox and explains his program, and then when his new program for predicting stuff, and then when it goes wrong with O'Brien, he says, I guess on reflection I need to rethink my programming. So that makes me think that he's writing this log in the moment, which if this was a human, I would be sinning. But I think because Data can do so many things at once, I think he is writing this log in the second as things are happening, and then he probably like edits it down so it isn't a 10,000 word essay. So I think he's doing it all in the moment is what I would guess, because he's an android and he can focus on more than one thing at once.
Yeah, then I think that there's something that he could have, done to follow protocol, but maybe in his mind, he's evolving that protocol to say, this is intuition. My finger was tapping because something was indicating that there was something new going on. Like, there's enough going on that's just a little bit wonky. But, he's also in a situation at the end where he says, Picard, I give him an X amount of % chance that he's going to go chase after this guy, even though protocol would say don't do it.
Yeah, I love that. 17% chance.
Yeah,
he's going to do it.
Yeah, so he's like, Data knows that not everything is something that you should follow a protocol on. So it's tricky. I don't know. But that moment stuck out to me too, that he was saying, I wish I had intuition. It's like, well, you're talking about it, so you have it.
You kind of do. Yeah. The fact that you're questioning her is a little bit of intuition. But again, it's a hard thing to define.
Did you also I like the bit of the tech talk this time too. Can I tell you why?
Oh, tell me.
I feel like the moment when they go and they look at the transporter and they're going and they're using all the tech talk about, well, this is why I'm confused why this has happened, because this was on, and this was on. So everything should be working fine. This coil was just changed. Everyone's in there like talking so casually about someone who was just murdered, by the way. I guess that's probably more of a sin.
No emotions.
Just like very factual. Well, this happened. Which, when O'Brien comes over the speakers and says, I'm losing a signal here, and oh shit, she's dead. That was like, oh, bud. Yeah. And then you go there's like a little spatter of goo on there and everything.
Transporter's fucked it up again.
The way that they talked about it, though I may have a plebeian Star Trek mind compared to most Star Trek fans, I was kind of following along. Like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So even though it's all just made up.
Let me just refer back to my transporter degree that I have. Yeah, this checks out. That all makes sense.
I find that to be a bit impressive, that whatever they're writing, I'm like, yeah, I can see how that makes sense.
I could see that malfunctioning, and I understand why they're confused about this. Yeah. You know what? I would be baffled too in this situation.
It just seemed like they thought it through really well.
I think that's a testament to it. It's not just throw out the technobabble. It's how would O'Brien be addressing this? How would we be analysing it? And then overlay the bits of missing wordage. So, it is genuinely an art form. The technobabble is an art form.
And I like again, we get to see this love of like Sherlock Holmes that Data kind of pulls out.
Great callback.
You see them moving very quickly from scene to scene. Think about how much we saw in this episode. Mm-hmm. How many scenes they had to shoot to edit it together to feel so seamless, that during this whole like investigation, they're not shooting one conversation in a room somewhere to encompass the entirety. They're not doing a debrief and then asking us to fill in the blanks with our imaginations. They're showing us Data and O'Brien running the transporter stuff, and all of these scenes had to be shot and then put together and editing. And I think that's one of the reasons I really love this episode so much, is because we saw a lot, and it was
such
really
a variety.
Juicy.
We go to the Arboretum with all of like the forest and stuff.
Pretty.
It's gorgeous.
The hairstylist thing you mentioned, that was super fun. Like in the background, you've got this person with their hair chain. That was so fucking cool. Like,
it was incredible. It was such a great. I still don't know how they did that. I don't know how they did that in 1990
in 1890, we had to paint every frame with tiny specks that were gotten from grinding flowers to a small pulp and drying it in the sun for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point was, Data goes through this like Sherlock Holmes-esque sort of investigation, which is right up his alley. We get to see his passion and his excitement, and then he has that great quote that says, like, once you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth, I think the quote. And that's really fun, because then you get to see this truth, which is she's not dead. She was taken off. And so then he goes and he looks for the next thing where there was a transporter.
Talking about 3 transporter beams, 2 of which have been manufactured to look like a Federation Starfleet tractor beam, is really unlikely. However, it's all that's left. We've ruled out everything else.
However, if you're going to go for gold, this is the moment, because if the Romulans had had what they wanted, it would have come across that the Enterprise people killed the ambassador that was still considered to be Federation.
Which
and
they know
the
isn't
Romulans,
true.
And the Romulans would have the juice that they need for war, and they'd have back their sister. So it was the time to do something really, really tricky and improbable and difficult, but they almost pulled it off. If Data hadn't been on board, I think they may have gotten away with it too.
Oh, I think so as well. Or they would have found out 6 months later. Like, Geordie would have been like, well, shit, I figured it out. But there is, man, one of my biggest regrets of this episode is that we don't see Alan Scarfmore, who is Admiral Mendak. He appears in an episode of Voyager and he plays someone else in TNG. But this Romulan Admiral, his deadpan delivery of gives me so chills every time. He's like sinister as fuck. He's like,
it's clear.
This was not an accusation. I salute your show of strength.
I know.
And the way he spells out Starfleet's plan was like, well played, Picard. It was worthy of a Romulan. Like, I believe him. I believe that he is like indignant and that he's actually proud, but a little bit offended as well that he's been outmaneuvered. Like, what an incredible Romulan, and he's barely in the episode.
And we got to see a decloaking warbird, and we heard that there's 3 more coming, and Picard's like, let's get the fuck out of here, and then
some days you get the bear, some days the bear gets you.
Which is the dumbest thing ever. But anyway, then we move into the end of the episode of the wedding, and Picard talks about, like, since the days of the wooden ships and such. And then it cuts over to a surprising moment for me when he goes and visits the baby. What did you think about that?
Context is really, really important. So, yes, I from what we know about Picard, it would be like, you don't like kids. What the hell are you playing at? What are you doing? This is overly sincere. This is season 4, episode 11. So the first episode of this season is the conclusion to Best of Both Worlds. And then the episode after that, he goes back to Earth to spend time with his family. and reconnect after being assimilated by the Borg. So he's just been through this hugely traumatic experience. He's reconnected with his brother, created a relationship there, kind of rekindled a relationship with his nephew as well. From season 4 onwards, this is where we begin to see Picard, as much as TNG does this kind of stuff, we see him develop into tolerating kids and even seeing their value and evolving. So season 4 onwards is where you see a lot more Picard depth.
It gave me Picard season 3 vibes in a good way.
Yeah.
There's that moment, in Picard season 3 where Beverly and Picard go to sickbay to check in on Jack. Mm-hmm. And we talked about when we watched that episode how it felt like Picard was sort of going to see the birth of his son for the first time because Jack hadn't woken up or whatever. And it was just this really powerful kind of like moment where he gets to see the first breath of Jack, you know? And then so now we're in sick bay and he's looking at a baby and you can see a lot of the emotion in his eyes. And the idea was something so like while the world, how did he say it? I think I wrote it down.
It's something like while we were facing oblivion,
destruction.
This small miracle
at the
was
same
happening.
Time we faced destruction, this miracle was taking place.
Yeah.
And this is one line. It's 20 seconds of screen time. And it didn't have to be in this episode at all for it to make sense. And yet they put it in there to give a little bit of character growth to Picard, a little mental check-in, I guess, a little wink and nod to, I suppose, like just how precarious life is on a starship. Mm-hmm. And that this little kid is so oblivious. And then he says, "Welcome aboard." And I was like,
my heart.
What is this episode? It has everything.
Right?
It's just missing a poker game, but poker was actually mentioned. So why is this the perfect TNG episode? Am I forgetting something? Like, is there another episode? I don't know. I think this is number 1.
I am gonna tear up. That's amazing. You're right. It really, really does have everything, and it even even
has Worf on the bridge giving control back to Data, which means we got to see Worf in control of the fucking ship.
The captain's chair, yeah.
And we didn't go to war. I mean, come on.
He didn't. He would have shot the Romulans immediately. He'd be like, hey, give us back the ambassador.
Just jet out of there.
Shields up. Let's go. Separate the ship. No, you're right. It is an outstanding episode. And it often sometimes gets put into the bucket of whimsical episodes. But you're right. It has so much in there. So much of what we love about TNG. The DNA that just goes all the way through it. It's just interesting that it's framed like no other TNG episode. It has a different format to anything else that we've really seen. I adore it.
Well, yeah. And if you gauge the show by the final line that the writers give you, which is oftentimes a really good way to sort of know what was the writer trying to say or the writers trying to say during the creation of this episode. Data says, if being human is not about being born flesh and blood, but acting and feeling, I am hopeful that I'll find my own humanity. Something to that effect. And so once again, this is a Data episode. This is about Data.
Just don't forget that.
He says, until then, I will learn and change and grow and become more of what I am. How
it's
powerful
incredible.
Is that?
We underestimate, everyone underestimates Data, and
so good.
He underestimates himself. It's such a profound thought. If every human on Earth was on the same journey that Data was on, we would all be better. We would all be better people.
And this is why we're okay with AI assimilation.
I really am. Like, if they're going to be like Data, let's freaking go. My final thought is just this shows how so many shows have done the android alien that doesn't understand humans, or like the robot that like doesn't quite understand emotions and stuff. TNG does it better than any other show, and this episode just kind of hits the nail on the head for me, because Data's questions always challenge everyone else to question why they do things as well. So it makes Keiko question why she's acting the way she is, why O'Brien is getting angry. Geordi is like, oh yeah, I guess I do rib people, but why was it inappropriate when Data did it, but it was fine when I was doing it to the barber? Like, and back in Descent, when Data feels his first emotion, and he's asking Geordi, how do you know when you feel things? And Geordi can't articulate it. He's just like, I just get angry. And it's so clever to not just patronize Data and tell him how things should be, but use him as a way to tap into why we do the things we do and how we've evolved this way. It's just really, really clever.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious.
It really is. And there's some things that they leave nebulous, and then there's some things that they hit right on the head. For example, when Data this episode says that he's not mystified, like he is confused by a lot of emotion, but he's not mystified by the desire to be loved, which was to me another kind of point that the show is making about like his evolution of this like
he
whole
wants to get
emotional
married
thing.
someday. He would have a lot to give as a partner. What a cute
He's not
thought.
wrong.
He's not wrong.
Data, run subroutine, clean my fucking house. And he'd be like, got you, babe.
Wow.
And then it's just done, you know? Like, I take a nap, wake up, and the whole house is done because he's super efficient at it. And then we can just chill and play video games. And he's really good at them. And he always
would kick
wins.
your
That's
ass
okay.
at video games. You don't want to do that.
I mean, it's fine. I got to make him feel good somehow. You know what I mean?
That's fair. But he doesn't feel. He'll be fine. He'll be happy to
doesn't
clean
feel.
as
That's
long as
right.
that serves his function.
Right. As long as I love him, you know, because he understands the desire to be, he gets that.
Yeah, he gets that.
We get this. We get this.
Before we move on, I'm going to quickly address something that popped up in the chat. Josh Zero says, Ian, have you heard of Mr. Spock? And Mr. Spock is exactly who I was referring to in the other shows that don't do it as well as TNG. Mr. Spock is the robot that doesn't understand humans, but in TOS, they patronize the heck out of him, and they don't often do it as a way to question themselves. They just kind of laugh at the alien that isn't quite human, and they tend to be quite, yes, they use it as an exploration of why humans do the things they do, but it's kind of like, ha ha ha, isn't it funny that Mr. Spock is so strange? We love because we are humans and we feel, and TOS always felt a little bit superficial with it. With Data, I feel like they do so much more work, and they end up questioning why they do things, not just patronizing him and laughing at him. Take that, TOS! With that, any last thoughts before we go into the sins, Ambassador?
Nope. I think I'm ready.
Let's do it. Battle stations, everyone.
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains, remind ourselves that no TV shows without sin, even, you heard it here first, the best episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Ambassador, you first.
Geordi gives shit to the barber about how bad he did, and then he won't stop moving while the barber's trying to cut his fucking hair.
Yeah, it's fair.
It's like, Geordi, just be still, man. If you
That's
don't want your
fair.
hair fucked up, don't be so animated while you're talking to your buddy. Like, you're fine. You can talk to somebody, but like, he's literally like, I don't know, Data. What do you think?
What
His
do
head's
you
just
think?
bobbing around. Like, you just
That's
gave this guy
amazing.
absolute shit about doing a bad job.
I do love how it's Geordie as well, the engineer, who has to be really specific and just like, you haven't calibrated my hair perfectly. It's such a great, although, I mean, it's such a great person to have in the chair, but part of me really wanted Riker in there, and just like how precious he is about the Riker helmet and his hair would have been beautiful.
Yeah.
Or Picard. Just like, you fucked up my haircut, Mott. So this is very cathartic for me, because this is something that has bugged me since the very first time I watched this episode. It's when Data is doing the rundown of everything that happens on the ship. There is too much happening on the ship. This is a ship of 1,000 people, a small village, a small amount of people. How many places have two distinct separate chess tournaments? Separate. Why would 1,000 people need two different chess tournaments? How many people are playing chess on this ship?
I think you underestimate how boring it is in space.
No, you have a holodeck. Can you imagine, like, Springfield having two chess tournaments, and there's like 100,000 people that live in Springfield?
I've thought about this. I've been thinking about this a lot.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Beverly in this episode says, computer run program, whatever. And then, you know, like the dance thing comes up, and then she says to play a song or something. I was thinking about this, like, unless you create your own holodeck somehow, there's probably just the same ones over and over again. Kind of like if you play Fall Guys and you're just playing the same things over and over again. And after you've been in space for years, you're probably sort of done with going to the watering hole, you know?
You just get bored of the holodeck? Are you kidding?
No, I'm not.
You must be kidding.
I think it's more complicated than we like to think. I think that maybe there are some people who are really, really good at programming, you know, and they have these really fun program ideas that they put out there. And then people get in there and they just consume them. And then they're like, I've already done that before. I've done that 17 times.
Okay, I'm going to blow your mind here. Imagine Wild RP, but on the holodeck.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get bored of that.
Yeah, probably.
But then the next RPG comes out, the next role-playing game, the next thing.
This is why people play chess. Because it's just the same as chess at the end of the day, you know?
That's CinemaSins. The next part of that list is that there are 4 promotions. 4? That's an average day. Like I said, there are 1,000 people on the ship. Let's say 300 of them are family members, 700 are crew members. You're promoting 4 people every day.
Yes.
You're going to run out of promotions.
But maybe
You're going to have
it's because
1,000 captains on board.
it's not like they're going to get promoted to captain. They could be promoted from junior slop chopper at the 10 forward, you know, putting all the food on the sloppy plate or whatever.
Okay, I have a new punishment for anybody who misbehaves in the chat. You're going to be junior slop dropper.
To like senior slopper, you know?
Yeah, nice.
That's technically a promotion.
You hit a ceiling at some point. 4 a day is fucking insane.
But not if the Enterprise gives out participation awards.
It's a Montessori starship.
Like the little bitty kids, they get all their little promotions, you know?
Yeah.
With the little badges or something.
You turned up. Yay! Wolf, you didn't kill anyone today. You didn't maim a single security officer. Well done. Well, I still think that list is meant to illustrate how big the ship is and overcooks how big the ship is and what the population is.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Your
maybe.
turn.
I mean, the wedding situation. Let's just talk about it.
Everything. All of it.
Once again, we are storytelling in a specific era. And there's a lot to be learned about the perception of marriage, relationships, power dynamics within relationships, purpose of getting married, how to talk about it. It all comes out in these shows, movies, moments that we kind of get to go back and peek in on and be like, this is how this conversation went in 19 whatever.
I think marriage has evolved more in the last 35 years than it has in the previous 300, genuinely.
I guess. Well, to me, it's the second time that this franchise has had a woman say, I don't want to get married. And then by the end of the episode, they're married. And this one didn't even give us the moment when Keiko realizes that she does want to get married. And it's indicated that maybe she was unhappy for other reasons, you know, besides just getting married. And so it's like there's little places that our brains can go to try to create some sort of story as to why she flip-flops into
Deneé, it's
marriage
Data's
again.
day, not Keiko's day. Okay.
So I would have a good time, I think, in this general area of her being like, I'm unhappy, I don't want to get married, and then just try to find a way to just have fun with poking fun at how we talked about this kind of stuff in the 90s, which it's hard to send a show for doing that because that's just kind of how conversations were approached.
It is kind of painted as marriage is the goal. When does it have to be? And you would hope that by the 2300s, we can still get married if we want, but it's not the be all and end all. And I would hope it was framed slightly more differently. But the most problematic thing is crotchety old Irishman O'Brien, who when he gets the news, he's just like, of all the ungrateful things I've ever heard, she's such a childish brat. And then just storms off to hit her with a potato. I'm like, do you want to be any more stereotypical?
I mean, there's so many red flags here, and let's just break down a couple of them. They're not even talking to each other is the big one. It's indicated like Troy, they're not speaking to each other. Keiko is sending data to talk to Miles. Miles is sending data to talk to Keiko. They're talking to the counselor who has basically saying, we need to leave them alone to figure this out. And then you have one character who's like, don't worry, they're going to get married. Don't you?
I know best.
They're going to get married.
Mr. fell in love with a hologram of a real person, and then that real person finds out that he had an affair with a hologram version of themselves, LaForge. Should not be giving advice on love.
It's just a lot. And that's the sin. The sin here is that it's another example of red flags if you're feeling these ways.
Right.
And you're getting married in your life and you're getting quote unquote cold feet, which basically means your intuition is telling you something is off an obligation will tell you to get married.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fucking worry about what everybody else thinks. Stop. Don't sign legal documentation binding you to somebody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, just because you're trying to make everybody else happy and hopefully not be lonely, because you can be lonely in a relationship too. And this is just like the train wreck of all of that coming together. And I'm super
None of these
triggered by
problems
it.
are going to get easier when you're actually married and when you're actually in there. Deal with them now. See if they're deal breakers, or fuck it, don't get married. You still fucking love each other. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Anyway, gosh dang it.
Just have a consensual sexual relationship, love each other, do whatever you want to do. I don't know, but marriage thing is just like triggering. We watched Little Mermaid recently, speaking of marriage being triggering. And I hope this isn't a spoiler for anyone, but in this new iteration, they're not racing to get married, they're racing to get engaged. And
Much better.
It is much better, though. At least that's a step between like pushing for marriage to just commitment.
Yes.
At least it's one step, you know. They're not gonna do a Disney movie about just a casual relationship for a while.
Why the fuck not? Teach them young. Don't institutionalize them from such a young age. Fuck. But yes, outdated views towards marriage, weddings,
it's just
and
uncomfortable. Yeah.
And women causing the problems as well. Women getting the cold feet and backing out. Yeah, there we go. All this needed was a bachelor party with strippers, and it would have had a lot of the wedding cliches. Fortunately, it's a small portion of the episode. So I'm just going to go with dancing in uniform because, like, Jesus, Beverly, wear something more breathable. Like, that is a terrible dance outfit. And just take your sweaty self back to sickbay and deliver a baby as well.
So that's so funny. I didn't even think about that. Hey, they move though. Apparently they can.
Right. It's amazing, especially in TNG, how rarely you see them out of uniform. Even when they're on the fucking holodeck in their leisure time, they are in uniform. We're like, guys, you have other clothing. Amazing. Your turn.
Let's see. I wrote down a sin without realizing that Data hadn't said it. Like, when I was watching, I was like, Data asked to learn a wedding dance. Why is Beverly teaching him tap? And I missed that he didn't specify. So that was kind of a fun little payoff for me where I was like, oh, she didn't know.
It's so funny. Well, come on, get back here. I wish that they just... There is another universe where they don't do the slow dance, and at the end of the episode, when Data does the first dance with the bride, he's just there tapping.
I thought that was what was going to happen. I thought that was going to happen.
It would be incredible. It would be so great.
There was a sin for me there when she says, "Okay, I'm going to teach you a new dance, though," and she says, "This is even more simple. Just do what I do."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is not how you teach someone how to.
It might be how you teach a robot.
Or whatever. Just do what I do.
I mean, there are times where she acknowledges he's a robot, and then there's also times when she doesn't. When she's like, wow, you picked this up quick. Yeah, he's a fucking android. No shit.
Well, right. But that's my point is like if you show the android tippity tap your foot like this, then he can kind of recreate that same thing. But just saying, follow my lead. No one's ever taught me how to dance before.
No. Me
but
neither.
If I ever have an instructor say, just do what I do, and then start moving me around a room, I'm going to be like, I'm going to need more information than that, which is exactly what happened to Data. So
I'm going to step on you.
I want to send that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Somehow.
I would kind of sin if I was being really nitpicky that Data should download this shit. Like, just download how to dance. It's fine. But I get that he's deliberately doing the interpersonal stuff as well. So I think that would be argumentative enough to cut. But it would be way more efficient to just download way to dance at a wedding. But then I really hope he would get like the dad dance going on.
We could do the lead in where she says lead and he goes where, and then the sin could be like to the database.
Yes, to the computer where you download this shit.
Yeah.
Yes, come over here.
But that moment, whenever she says, and then they like kind of get into things, she goes like, okay, I'm gonna lead first, and now you lead. They both just slap their hands back together. It's really fun. The whole fucking scene is amazing. I want to watch it again.
Yeah, it's really great. Speaking of red flags from earlier, Riker just getting sexual harassment lawsuits is now canon. Like, Data basically says, I think this is why he's so great at sexual affairs and like romantic,
I missed that.
Oh, he said this is why he's talking about Riker telling a joke and humor, and he says, I think this is why Commander Riker is so successful at romantic endeavors or affairs or something like that. Just implying that everyone knows Riker fucks. He has a good time with the ladies. He's just seducing any of the bridge crew that is up there.
And he doesn't have to get married, but women do.
Yeah, exactly. He's free to fuck. The 80s, man. How do they work? How do they work?
Still happens today,
Anything
man.
else? Well, right, exactly.
I would definitely send Keiko at the very end, who just suddenly drops on Data that she's getting married and pretends like he should have known all along.
What a dick move. You need to get changed.
She's like, he comes in and he says, I think I should apologize. I'm updating my protocol here. I think I need to apologize. And she's like, you don't need to apologize. You need to get dressed for the wedding. And it's like, that's just... How does anyone communicate in this world? You could send a message. Hey, Keiko to Data, just letting you know I have decided we're going to get married. So or a priority message on your little fleet email, Starfleet email or whatever. Mm-hmm. But no, she waits until it's wedding in 2 minutes. Data just happens to come apologize about something, and she just sort of like, oh, and by the way, is him, which is so stupid. And
that's a dick move. Sure. Just like. Yeah, easily communicated. By the way, when this Enterprise gets comm badges, that will be the noise of the internal communication system. It's perfect. Right, that's all of the sins that I've got. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Well, let's quickly look at the predictions that we forgot to talk about earlier. Deneé did make a couple of predictions. The big prediction was that it would be the wedding of O'Brien. Did I give that away? Did I let that slip at some point?
No, I was so shocked. In fact, you can listen to the audio because you're editing it. When it got to that point, I was like, holy shit, I was right.
Nailed it. I had to keep a poker face on that one.
You did great, because I didn't pick up that I was right on that. So that was a surprise to me while I was watching it.
That's incredible. Yeah, great prediction. It was indeed his wedding. The very specific predictions were someone is allergic to shellfish. I mean, maybe the ambassador, that's why she melted in the transporter beam. Shellfish allergy.
That was the goop that was actually on the ground, was like some sort of shellfish thing. That didn't happen. Yeah,
nope. Something terrible happens and Data saves the day. Now, it wasn't relating to the wedding, but
that was non-specific.
He did save the day.
He did.
That is true. It doesn't happen every episode.
Half a point.
Everyone gets food poisoning, TBD.
Right.
we don't know.
Yes. Yep.
All the doors gets locked. No one can get to the wedding, and everyone has to wear clothes from the replicator because the replicator is replicating.
Didn't happen.
Shit. Didn't happen.
No. We definitely saw wedding garb.
Where the doors locked.
We did get to see some formal, longer coats from.
I love it.
Those were cool.
The TNG dress uniforms are very cool. Yeah, it's like the scant but with trousers.
Yeah. It's the scanned wowzers.
No, oh my goodness, scousers? No, scousers is something else. That's something else in England.
It's the wowzers.
Amazing. Okay, next week we've just got one episode until we do the premiere of Strange New Worlds, and that will be 10 weeks of fucking Strange New Worlds, people. Let's go! So excited.
Are you okay?
No, I want this show right now. Don't you act like you're not excited.
I'm not excited.
You are. You are. So for episode 1 of season 9 of Captain's Pod, which will be all of Strange New Worlds, we're actually going to be broadcasting on Thursday instead of Friday. So this will be the same day that Strange New Worlds episode 1 launches. So we'll be doing a special premiere stream, probably at the same time, I think. But we'll confirm that. But yeah, same day that Strange New Worlds comes out, we will be doing our immediate reactions and just getting excited all over the place with the return of the Commodore. The Commodore 64. Because he is 64. Yep. Every episode after that will be on a Friday, though. It's just the premiere that we're doing on Thursdays. Next week's episode, as our last episode, it's a bit of a strange one. It's one of my favorite episodes. It's called Relics. So this is an episode of TNG, and I don't really want to spoil too much, but it does have a link to Strange New Worlds. So yeah, Star Trek TNG Relics. And yes, join us next week as we review that one. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening live. We'll be back next week, 12:30-ish CT on YouTube Live and Twitch. But until next week, I'm off to chase an untamed ornithoid without cause.
This is a very complex set of variables to coordinate, Dr. Friendly.
And live long in Pottsburg.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
It is Chief O'Brien. Holy shit!
Captain's Pod, stardate 80262. Wait.
Are you ready, Captain?
Yeah, no, I am. I just read that
this
weird.
This is a recurring theme
with
you.
We listened to like the test. I did like the 2 years ago, whenever we started. I did like a test intro for like music and the intro to the show, and it's so calm. And over the last 2 years, it's just devolved into Captain's Pod, stardate. But it was like really sedate. And should I start with that? Should I open with a more sedate version?
I mean, I think that the audio you're talking about was like, the test audio that we did. And you were really experimenting with what you wanted the intro to sound like at that point. But then the excitement of doing the show took over. I don't think you're going to be able to hold back the excitement personally. No. I think it's just going to bubble out of you.
Especially after like 3 years of not recording live. Okay.
You okay?
How was that,
right?
You people? Yeah.
That was a lot.
Get it.
Yeah. I think I need to move the puppy bed because people ain't going to be able to see puppers.
Oh, or you could lower your camera.
Or you could lower your expectations.
Done.
That was fast. Perhaps a little too fast.
Okay. Whoops. I slid down that scale a bit too much. Whoops. Let me raise them up 5%.
A little too emphatic as well. Like it was instant. It's like, you know what?
I was already prepared to lower my expectations. Deneé, can you guess how many ships I have waiting for me at home?
6.
1, 2.
You asked me and you don't even know.
Yeah, no, because you got it right, and I think you got it right, but now I'm not sure. Shit. It's great when I have these answers ready to go. Hang on a minute, let me have a look. Order updates.
Captain's Pod. Stardate. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
I have 10 ships waiting for me.
Wow. Okay.
I'm so excited. This started nearly 3 months ago, and I haven't been able to touch any of them.
Question though, because this is not something that you have to share right now, because this might be too much. This might hurt a little bit too much. Where are you going to put them? Those of us who have watched you stream, we know that you have very minimal space on the shelf behind you.
I think that bookcase. So the problem with that bookcase is that it doesn't have enough shelves. So the spacing that is there is the spacing I have to deal with unless I go and buy some more shelves. So I think I may have to. I think what I'm going to do is take that bookcase apart and then just attach those shelves to the wall. So cut up like the side, the top, the bottom, and just have them in the wall like that.
So in order to shelve these 10 additional ships, you're going to completely take apart a perfectly fine bookcase so that you can use the side pieces as additional storage.
When you say it like that, it sounds ridiculous.
All I did was repeat back what you said.
No, you said it in a really so what you're going to do, you're going to kill everyone and use their bones to display your ships. You said it like I was a sociopath. What's funny, my parents were like, because I've bought them over the space of 3 months. They've all gone to my parents' address while I've been over here. So I was like, how are my models? Are they good? Are they in a safe space? And they're they've downsized because they don't have anyone living with them anymore, anybody. It's just them two. So they've downsized to a smaller property to make the most of that retirement money. So it's we don't have space for them. They're in the attic. They are upstairs in the attic. And I'm like, okay.
Where do you want them to be? Cuddled on the couch in their boxes?
They have a couch that they barely use. They just put it on there. Just I don't know, in the kitchen somewhere that it's safe. Where the TV should be, they should put the TV in the attic and then just look at my ships in their boxes because I don't want them to open them.
Okay.
I'm a great son.
I feel like the next time we talk about this, you're going to say, you know what? I decided not to do all of that. Instead, I'm buying a bigger house.
Yeah. I'm buying a 5-bedroom house. 3 bedrooms will be for my models.
My family are collectors, potentially borderline hoarders. And I have heard many times that, I'll just put it in my storage unit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you can't even enjoy what you have because it can't go.
It's blocked by other things
in your life. I feel like the future of you, like 60-year-old Ian, is going to live in a house where in every room hanging from the ceiling, fully just ships everywhere.
I mean, you say
Which
that.
could look kind of cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were saying that as if it would be a bad thing. That sounds like my perfect house. That sounds incredible. My birthday was a couple of weeks ago, and people always ask me, like, what do you want for your birthday? And I'm like, not much. A batleth would be great, like a real to-scale batleth. And they're like, well, what else do you want? No, that's the one thing I would like, please. And I haven't got one yet.
I'm just not comfortable purchasing a weapon for you.
I'm not comfortable purchasing a 3-foot serrated blade.
So I have the situation. No, I'm going to keep it PG-13.
None of this story isn't PG-13, don't worry.
This is such a bad lead up to a story. Like, I should be banned. So my toilet seat, not like the porcelain base, but the seat on top where you put your bum, has come loose off of the base. And because I am just assuming that I have the internal fortitude, the core muscles necessary to sit on it and keep it steady and balance and do all the things that one must do as a woman.
It's great core training.
It is like a slip and slide meets toilet experience. Part of me loves it. It's like, oh, this is new. I've been going to the bathroom the same way for far too long. Why not add a little extra level of excitement? And the other part of me is like prepared to call for help when I fall into the toilet, because it's going to happen. Like either that or I'm going to slide directly off of it and then into that little tiny space between the toilet and the wall that everybody has. Like I'm going to be crammed in there.
Yeah. Just folded. Just find you folded up.
Just help. I have to get a new one. Oh, and then there's also, I have to like put barriers in front of the toilet so that Iris doesn't forget that it's not an appropriate toilet to use, because I'd lose her. She would just be gone. Yeah. She doesn't have the fortitude and the core strength that her mother does.
Here's a question. Why don't we just make the toilet bowl the size of the toilet seat? Why do we need toilet seats? Why not just make the bowl something you can sit on?
This is a really great question. I'm sure it's been answered before.
With just a lid. Like, you can still have a lid on there, but you lift the lid up and just sit directly on the toilet.
I mean, it's a really great question. Here is the trivia for you guys today. We all know that one of Captain Picard's catchphrases is, "Make it so." However, do any of you know where aboard the Enterprise he first says it? And I'm going to say it's in the loo.
Make it so. Plop.
Make it so. Hopefully he has an attached seat to his toilet.
If you have to, if you have to convince it to like, just make it so, seek medical attention.
Nick says, Sin, Data is not Google Chrome. Data does not have incognito mode. Hey, Data, maybe go tell the captain of the ambassador's search history. I agree with you a little bit. I think if he believed that she was lying, and I think he thought that she was testing his system, but maybe he should have had some sort of like, somebody tried to access this file. You need to know about that. Because he did give her an out. He did say, I am supposed to tell somebody if you go for this.
But I think even asking for it should trigger that. Like, even if you don't give it over, it should already go to the captain. And maybe it did. And maybe he's just like, yeah, no, that makes sense. I buy her reasoning. I would absolutely put that joke in the script, though, of the ambassador clearly forgot to put her android into incognito mode.
I like that.
Because that's just like a couple levels of funny in there.
Here's another one from Nick. Data, look up how to dance on the internet. You don't need Dr. Beverly. That was Ian's point. True.
Straight to porn as well. You just look up dancing on the internet. You'll get porn. The way I search for it anyway. Next.
I want to, right now, live, search for the word dancing where you all can see my screen.
Yeah.
Because it will come up with dancing, Ian.
It won't be long until you find something sexual.
On page 700, how long are you looking for porn?
Oh, how little you know the internet.
Nick says, I love that this was Keiko's introduction. Like, where did she come from? We never actually get her backstory. How does she know Data better than O'Brien? The both were on the ship from day one. I didn't know this was her introduction.
This is the first episode with Keiko. Yeah, correct.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm not. It's wild.
Well, that's a sin too then.
Right.
There's literally nothing before this. She's calling him father.
Yeah. Let me confirm.
I mean, a little backstory would be nice. I believe Nick.
I do believe Nick. It is Data's day. It's so funny. It is jarring as heck, especially the thing, like, how has he known Keiko longer? Like, how did they know each other before the ship? Off the ship?
There's literally no explanation for this.
No, none at all. Keiko just appears, is Data's daughter.
That's mind-boggling. That's so stupid. I mean, you just have to accept it, I suppose. It was such an important... Oh my God, that's bothering me.
Sorry.
No.
I
Did you
honestly
choose?
forgot. I forgot
okay.
this was her first episode, genuinely, because
Well, thank you for bringing
it
it up,
doesn't
Nick.
make sense that it is, but it is. I
Oh,
watch these
that's
out of order so
really
much, it
upsetting.
just blends together.
Slab says, this has one of the best dumb quotes in Trek. Some days you get the bear. Some days the bear gets you.
It's true. Just true. Come on. Facts.
I don't even... If you live in the woods, yeah. What a weird quote for space, anyway. Why are we talking about bears?
Yeah, bears in space. Hey, you
It
find a
should be
bear in
like-
space, you fucking run.
It should
That
be
bear
like-
is on it.
Someday the asteroid gets you. Like, it should be something space related, not bear related. Especially, does every planet have bears? How is this the quote
Apparently
that's
so.
made it?
Yeah. This is the quote that has survived 300 years into the future. Ian is onto something here. The town I live in has a population of, checks a Google, 1,580, and I've never seen a chess tournament there. Thank you. Let alone 2. Can you imagine 2 individual chess tournaments for a population of 1,000 people?
One for the adults and one for the children. I don't know why this is so confusing.
No.
Nick mentions a terrible track record for transporters regarding Vulcan ambassadors. Something about an extremely gruesome motion picture moment.
So it's not an ambassador, it's the first officer of the Enterprise, Spock's replacement. It's so random. At the beginning of the motion picture, they beam over, like the Enterprise is in the middle of a refit. They beam over this Vulcan first officer and he dies in agony. Like, the transporter scene goes on for like 30 seconds and he screams, gets turned into goo, and then when they cancel it and beam him back to the starbase, Kirk says, like, did the person make it? And the reply is, whatever made it back didn't live long, which means it lived a little bit to scream in agony and then die. And that's their way of getting Spock back onto the ship. So yeah, bad track record for Vulcans and for Vulcans and transporters. I was about to say Tuvok has a pretty traumatic transporter incident as well, but the less said about that, the better.
Let's go ahead and answer this question. Did everybody get your guesses in?
Yeah, I think so. Josh said Picard first says make it so on deck 14, section 5. Nick says in the shuttle bay. Everyone else says they don't know because it's very, very specific. Now, JCD has been wrong in the past, but I think he is right on this occasion. It happens in Encounter at Farpoint, so episode 1 is a very, very safe bet. And apparently it happens on the battle bridge. He says make it so, to like when they're separating for the first time. So it's fairly early on. So yeah, that makes sense. I'll accept that as the correct answer. I think that's right.
The poop deck.
It would be on TV. I mean, Josh says, I did also say the Stargazer. Yes, he probably said it on board the Stargazer, his first command, but that didn't happen on screen. So, let's go through some other stuff that you absolutely loved about the episode. Give me some moments.
Okay, I will. Because that's what I can do, because I'm fully prepared for that conversation. And you're definitely not going to have to edit around this. Oh, no. Definitely not going to have to do that.
Nope, not even a little bit. So for the very, very special premiere episode of season 9 of Captain's Pod, which is... Sorry, I'll have to redo that now. Scantaloons wins the day.
Petey in the chat says Scantaloons.
Scantaloons, that's the new formal dress.
Oh my god, I want a Scantaloon so
Scantaloon
bad.
me, baby.
Oh my god. Sorry, you were saying Captain.
Scantaloons.
I'm so sorry.
Incredible.